right. Good morning. Today we are here to announce a civil lawsuit against the Chicago Public Schools on behalf of Sharon Hinton and her daughter Jenny for horrendous acts of race and sexual-based bullying and abuse while Jenny was 11, 12, and 13 years old in the 2022 to 2025 school years at Wildwood World Magnet School. In those academic years, Jenny was the only Black student in her 5th through 7th grade years, and she was subjected to extreme bullying by other students, including calling her fat, ugly, a whore. Why did you come to this school? I'm trying to kill you. You're shaped like an egg, shaped like a football. And all of this was done because she was Black and the only Black student at that school. Now, the bullying was so extreme that Jenny became suicidal and had to be hospitalized for suicidal ideation. Through all this, the school officials minimized, obfuscated, and covered up what was going on to Jenny's mother, to the point where she had to press and press and press to find out the truth of what was happening at this school. Now, Disparti Law Group stands with victims of racism, bullying, and sexual abuse everywhere. I will now turn it over to Patricia Carlin, who is co-counseling this matter with Disparti Law Group.
Good morning, and thank you for being here. My name is Patricia Carlin of the Carlin Law Firm, LLC, and I am one of the attorneys representing the plaintiffs in the civil action that will be filed shortly against the Chicago Board of Education and 4 individual employees of Wildwood IB World Magnet School. This lawsuit seeks accountability for nearly 3 years of egregious misconduct that no child and no parent should ever have to endure. CPS' job is to create a safe learning environment, to investigate reports of harassment, and to protect vulnerable students. Instead, they turned a blind eye, retaliated against Jenny and her family, and even filed baseless DCFS reports against her mother. Throughout this case, the family wants the focus to remain on systemic change. They believe that Chicago's children deserve classrooms where every student, no matter their race, gender, or background, can learn without fear. To students who are experiencing bullying or abuse, Jenny's story sends a clear message. You are not alone, and your voice matters. To parents, it is a call to vigilance and solidarity. And to school officials across the city and the state, it is a reminder that your legal and moral obligation to protect children is non-negotiable. Our client's goal is not only justice for themselves, but safer schools for all children in Chicago. We will pursue this case vigorously and transparently, confident that the legal process will bring the full truth to light. Thank you again, and I'm now going to turn it over to Cass Casper.
Thank you, Patricia. My name is Cass Casper. I'm one of the attorneys here at Disparti Law Group. I will be on the litigation team handling this matter along with Patricia Carlin, Jamal Buchanan, Amanda Martin, and Bob Fioretti. We are imminently filing this lawsuit. We are bringing multiple counts for willful and wanton conduct and negligence against the Chicago Board of Education and school officials at Wildwood for the extreme acts of race-based bullying, sexual harassment, and sexual abuse that happened on young Jenny. Folks, Jenny, and that's not her real name. We're using a pseudonym to protect her identity. Jenny was 11, 12, and 13 years old when this happened. She was in 5th, 6th, and 7th grade. In preparing for this press conference, I outlined the many disparate acts of extreme bullying that are alleged in the complaint. And I got pages and pages, and I want to highlight some of them for you because it's important that we know what happened and we communicate what happened here. September 2022, teacher observes Jenny crying and Jenny advising her that she's been bullied by being called a whore. Wish you never came here, Jenny. Why do I have to look at your face, Jenny? September 2022, teacher refers her to a social worker. November 2022, Jenny writes, feel like I am going to die on a classroom questionnaire. The school does a suicidal ideation assessment, which comes back, she's at moderate risk of suicide, folks, from the bullying that was going on. An incident report was generated. Wildwood never tells the mother of Jenny, Sharon Hinton, that a suicide assessment was done of Jenny in November 2022. Again in November, later on in the month, Jenny outcries that she wants to die. A second suicide ideation is performed. Moderate risk is determined. Again, Jenny's mother is never told by the school that suicidal ideation assessments are being done. Later on in November, November 30th, Jenny reports that students are calling her fat, ugly, shaped like an egg, shaped like a football, shaped like a marshmallow. And folks, Jenny's the only black student in her class. This is race-based. Jenny is always crying when she reports this bullying to her teachers, and yet the school, Wildwood, doesn't tell mom a thing about what's going on. December 1st, 2022, Jenny reports that a student slaps her and touches her in no-no parts. Wildwood again does not tell mom. December 5th, 2022, the school decides to institute a safety plan for Jenny, but they don't present it to mom. They don't get mom's input. Mom doesn't know anything about what's going on for the school. December 6th, 2022, a student strikes Jenny at recess, hits her, and says, I'm trying to kill you. Again, Jenny, the only black kid in the class. That's just, folks, from September to December 2022. I have pages of the ongoing incessant bullying that happened, all of a like nature to what I just described to Jenny through January 2023, February 2023. She's called an ugly fat bitch by students. Again in February, Jenny gives a note to a teacher saying she hates herself and wants to die. Mom is never told. Again in February 2023, February 28th, Jenny reports being called an ugly ass, a horny ass pig. Mom's not told by the school. The school generates an incident report, but doesn't tell mom. April 2023, Jenny reports that a classmate has been pulling her hair and trying to bite her and tried to push her down the stairs. The school performs a third suicidal ideation assessment, comes back moderate. Mom doesn't know. March 2023, the bullying escalates to outside of the school. Now it's on Snapchat, where Jenny's being sent messages that say, kill yourself, with sexually explicit content as well. March 2023, it's discovered that students are referring to Jenny as the N-word behind her back, using school computers to do that. Again, mom knows very little. I won't go on. All of the disparate incidents of extreme bullying and abuse are outlined in the complaint, and everybody needs to read these because this is what's the kind of thing that must be remedied, and we hope to remedy it with this lawsuit. Again, we're imminently filing this count, multiple counts of negligence and willful and wanton conduct against the board, other school officials. We're seeking to obtain certain key changes, systemic changes as a result of this litigation. For one, whenever the school performs a suicidal ideation assessment of a student, they must notify the parents immediately. 3 times, mom wasn't notified about that. Why? That's unacceptable. Immediate notification needs to be made to parents that extreme acts of bullying are going on of their children. Why wasn't that done here? 3 years it's going on. Thirdly, why wasn't there an intervention done as to the rest of the students in the classroom to teach them, You can't engage in this kind of bullying, this kind of race-based bullying, this kind of sexual harassment. It can't be done. Why wasn't that kind of intervention done to the students? Fourth, we're seeking that Chicago Public Schools establish a separate office, a separate investigative office to deal just with allegations of bullying. Right now, from our information and what's been otherwise reported, bullying complaints go to the Office of Student Protection. Sexual abuse complaints go to the Office of Student Protection. According to a Sun-Times report recently, there are 8 investigators in the Office of Student Protection, and there were 13,000 different inquiries over the last couple of years. We need our own office to investigate extreme acts of bullying, staffed by its own people, to root out this kind of conduct from our school. These are the changes we're hoping to make. Thank you very much. And I will now turn it over to Bob Fioretti for additional comments.
Thank you, Cass, and thank you for coming forward and telling the story to allow us to go forward here. You know, schools enable this type of conduct, and this is what we're talking about, whether it's sexual or bullying. 450 complaints last year, 450 the year before, give or take, and it adds up, and they don't have the resources to deal with them. This is a case. As it goes on, I ask each and every member of the press to follow closely, because it's systemic throughout the system on what we see and what happens. We're going to see a cover up from those in down at Dearborn at the main office to the people in the school and the principal. There's a lot more to be said here in this case that will come out, and I believe will be shown in discovery. You know, the scope of misconduct is wide. It can be verbal, touching, harassment, even the employees engage in it. The numbers that we've asked for are appalling when we see what's happening in our public school system. And yes, we have a system that is broken. We want our children to have a safe environment, a learning environment where they can be creative in their own approach. And this is not happening in many of our schools. We ask those that know further information here at Wildwood, come forward. We need your information too. We're going to see a lot more of this happening throughout the course of this litigation. With your help and everybody's help, we will resolve this matter and create a new system for the Chicago Public Schools. I'd like to turn it over to the mother right now, Sharon Hinton. It is quite emotional for her. I should say one thing before. We have filed a preliminary motion that's necessary in this case. The preliminary motion allows us because it's a Jane Doe, to go forward. And once the chief judge, or excuse me, the presiding judge signs that, we file the full complaint. So we have filed, something is on file. We've taken the preliminary steps here in at the Daly Center. But I want to bring forward Sharon Hinton. She has an emotional story, as most mothers would be, and most parents should be. And she's going to tell a story that's heartbreaking for everyone.
Thank you to these attorneys hearing me out, because no one would listen. Good morning, everyone. My name is Sharon Hinton, and I am the mother of Jenny Doe, a bright, kind-hearted child who came home from school carrying emotional wounds no child should ever have to carry. My daughter was physically, emotionally, and sexually harmed while attending a school that was supposed to protect her for 3 long years. And what's most devastating is that the harm she endured wasn't hidden. It was documented. They saw the signs, they had the reports, and still they did nothing. This wasn't a lack of awareness, it was a lack of action. My daughter didn't just fall through the cracks, she was placed in them. And when she tried to speak up for herself at her vulnerable age at 10, she was ignored. and I wasn't told. I wasn't informed until it was already too late. And once I became aware, I did what any mother would do. I stood up and asked for help. I demanded safety. I demanded the truth. But instead of support, I was met with resistance. And so was my daughter. We were treated as if we were the problem, not the ones harmed. We didn't ask for special treatment, just basic protection. But even that was too much to expect for a Black child in a white school. Wildwood, that is. No school is high performing if it crushes the spirit of Black children to keep its rankings. This is what it feels like to be failed by the very system you trust with your children, a system I pay into with my taxes, expecting protection, equity, and care. And yet, when we need it the most, we were left behind. Let me be clear. My daughter's pain is real. Her story is not up for debate. And our voices won't be silenced just because the truth is uncomfortable. We are not here asking for pity. We are calling for truth, accountability, and change. Because what we endured wasn't just painful, it was preventable. And far too many families have gone through the same. The public article published by WBEZ and the Chicago Sun-Times only scratched the surface, but every word, it was rooted in fact. And while this story is about my daughter, it is also about something bigger than us. It's about every child who has ever whispered, but nobody helped me. It's about every parent who's had to carry their child's pain while the world looked away. Racism doesn't always just show up in slurs. Sometimes it shows up in silence, in delays, in who gets protected and who gets ignored. We're not imagining it, we're living it. And I'll end with this. The true measure of any society can be found in how it treats its most vulnerable, especially when those vulnerable are children in schools. When a school system knows harm is happening and still chooses inaction, it is not the child who is broken, it is the system. And if my voice, the mother of Jenny, shakes that system, then let it shake until silence breaks. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon, for that powerful statement. We're now opening it up for any questions. I do want to emphasize there's a lot of discovery to be done in this case, and there are going to be some questions we cannot answer right now for tactical reasons. But if there are questions, we're happy to do what we can.
What type of relief are you seeking?
We're seeking the systemic policy changes that I referenced a moment ago, a separate office to investigate actions of extreme bullying against students, which does not now exist. We're seeking reaffirmation of training on the student body at Wildwood, at least, maybe systemic wide, that this kind of extreme bullying and racial bullying cannot exist. We're seeking immediate notification to parents whenever a suicidal ideation assessment is done on a student, as was done 3 times with Jenny here. I can't believe Sharon wasn't notified when that was done. That is shocking, along with everything else in this case. Those are some of the policy changes we're seeking right now. We're also seeking monetary damages for Jenny. I mean, she's been diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder, I'll say that. Anxiety disorders as a result of all this. She's been hospitalized for suicidal ideation, separate from the assessments the school did. Those are the things we're seeking right now. Other questions?
Suicidal ideations. One thing that we saw is that the forms weren't signed by the parents. Do you think that would have been is something that you'd like to see that the parents have to verify that they've been told? Because it sounds like maybe the social worker made a call that wasn't specific into how bad it was or what was really going on.
It should absolutely be signed by the parent. I mean, without a question, it should be signed by the parent. There's nothing more extreme we can think of than, hey, your daughter is showing signs of suicide. The parent needs to be notified, and they need to sign off so there's proof that the parent was notified, period. You had a clarification?
I hear that
Wildwood, and do you think that her change in employment has anything to do with this?
It's too, we're concerned about that link. We're concerned about that link, and that's going to be an issue for the discovery in this case. It's too early in the litigation to discuss that further, but that's going to be an issue we're going to look at.
Can we hear from Ms. Hinton about her daughter, her personality, her interests, and it sounds like there's an obvious behavioral change. So what kind of changes did she see during this time?
That's a great question. Sharon?
So my daughter would come home and just say like kids are being mean. And that's what she would say. She will come home distraught, crying, and I will ask her like what's going on, and she would say kids were being mean. And you know, when I would ask the school, they would tell me things like normal friend dynamics. So that's what I ran with. Because who wouldn't believe the adults that are supposed to be protecting your kids? You wouldn't think that they were telling you something different.
And when you realize the severity, how did you feel about that?
It broke my heart to the point where I thought that Melissa Resch was my friend. Joined the LSC because I thought she was my friend.
You guys are asking for this special office for bullying. I'm sure you are aware, CPS just laid off 1,400 workers. They have this incredible $700 million budget deficit. I would assume that they're going to say there is no funding for something like that. How would you respond to that?
Wait a minute, you know, when you look at the number of complaints that are coming out and the money that's being spent on these lawsuits, it's time that we need systemic change in CPS. I mean, it's absurd. We're not the only group and the only lawyers in the city that have filed these type of lawsuits. And the millions of dollars worth of damages far exceed the cost.
Can someone address the sexual harassment allegations by teachers?
Yes, as if it could get any worse. And with the pages and paragraphs of the student-on-student bullying that happened in this case and race-based harassment, there's also allegations that the student PE teacher, who was named as one of the defendants, rubbed his genitals against Jenny's back. And I'm not going to get into the explicit details of that. It's in the complaint. You can read about it. On top of everything else, that happened. Yeah, and mom isn't notified about it adequately. In addition, the same student PE teacher was caught looking at Jenny's crotch area where there was a hole in her pants. And this is further detailed in the complaint. So on top of everything else, we have teacher on student sexual abuse in this case.
There's some teacher who allegedly was hitting her.
I didn't quite catch that question.
There's another teacher who was hitting her back.
Yeah, there's also allegations that the gym teacher was engaging in batteries upon Jenny as well. It's outlined in the complaint. Again, it's like an encyclopedia of information, this complaint. There's so much that went wrong here. So I'd refer to the complaint on that. Other questions?
One thing that I think was still outstanding that we weren't able to answer in our report was what happened to the other students? Like what actions were taken to try to get the students to stop? I'm wondering if that's going to be part of the lawsuit. If you guys, in discovery, you're going to try to figure out what did the school do in reaction to the students?
Well, our objective with this lawsuit is not to demonize or alienate other students. They're victims of the same systemic failures here that were all perpetuated by the board and the school officials. I would say a lot of promises were made to Sharon by the school officials about what they were going to do with the students who were bullying. And the information we have right now is virtually none of those promises were met, as far as we know now, which is unacceptable. Other questions?
One other question I had is that after publishing the article, we heard from a bunch of other people. I'm wondering if you guys have heard from other families, maybe at Wildwood, but also having bullying instances at other places, and if you're thinking about expanding the complaint at all.
Yes. Since Disparti Law Group and Carlin Law Firm have started down the road of reform-minded lawsuits against Chicago boards, such as this one, we have received hundreds of calls from concerned parents in the community about bullying and sexual abuse-related issues. It's alarming. So the answer to that question is likely. Other questions? All right, with nothing else, thank you very much for coming, folks.
Thank you.